Joining us to talk about the tariff news, Michael Froman, president of the Council on Foreign Relations, a former trade representative in the Obama administration. So he knows a thing or two about tariffs and about trade. Michael, we've already started watching this retaliatory effort taking place this morning by China. The question is this now an invitation to other countries to retaliate too, or is this a one-off? How do you see this, and what kind of calls would historically at least be being made if you were in this kind of administration to those countries right now, and what does that conversation look like?
Well, I think what we've seen overnight with China's announcement of the 34% retaliation is that countries are going to stand up to the U.S. And that we're not the only country that has leverage. In fact, China has very significant leverage over the U.S., as your previous guest just talked about. There are a lot of areas where we are very dependent on inputs from China, and they are restricting the export of some of those critical minerals to us. By the way, our defense establishment is well, they've been working to reduce their dependence on China. There's a lot of Chinese equipment that goes into our defense production. And so even on our defense production, we're dependent on China. And of course, on the tariff side, we export about $150 billion worth of goods to China, now subject to a 34% tariff. That's soybeans, it's airplanes, it's electronic equipment, semiconductors. There's all sorts of products that we want to be competitive in, that we produce very good product for, that are now going to have difficulty getting into foreign markets. So this is a very significant step. I think, to your point, it will encourage other countries. It could come cover to retaliate. It'll be interesting to see how the Europeans react, whether this sort of builds a more consensus there around imposing tariffs on us. And then the big uncertainty is that half the White House is saying these tariffs are not subject to negotiation. And the other half, and very importantly, the president of the United States is saying, well, maybe we will negotiate. So countries are waiting to see. They don't want to escalate. Right. And for the sake of escalation, they want to escalate to get the U.S. to the table to have a real negotiation.
So, Michael, I guess the question is, most of the people who've come on our broadcast today have suggested effectively that one way or the other, there will be an off-ramp, that there is no way that these tariffs at these levels at least go into place. Maybe there's a 10% tariff across the board, the baseline. I don't know. But that somehow or another, there's going to be a shift. And that would be a political shift for the president. Do you see that? And what chess pieces do you think exist that would allow the president to claim a win? We talked earlier in the broadcast about TikTok, for example, which could be a chess piece in all of this. This deadline coming up this week. And maybe if you were able to go to China and say, hey, we want the algorithm, give us the algorithm, lease us the algorithm or something, and we'll lower the tariff number. I don't know. I don't know what the American public thinks of that. I don't know what the Chinese think of that.
Well, there are issues with virtually every country that could be negotiated and which he could claim a win for, whether it's reducing Europe's 10% tariff on U.S. auto exports or a number of things with China, whether it's around TikTok or approval of some of our agricultural products to be sold there, allowing more market access in various ways. So there are definitely things that could be negotiated. This administration very much believes in bilateral negotiations. But we just set off a starting gun for bilateral negotiations with 180 countries. And that is difficult to do in any reasonable period of time. And so in the meantime, we're going to be subject to the cost of tariffs, both the direct costs and the costs of retaliation.
Michael, for the most part, the business community has been almost unwilling to criticize this president, almost across the board. You've had some groups, Business Roundtable, have been critical of certain policy issues or whatnot, but being critical about this president thus far has been almost verboten for a whole bunch of reasons. The question is, do you think that changes from a political calculus? Either business leaders start speaking out, or you think people who are a part of the Republican Party in the House or the Senate start to speak out against the president? And does that change things? But how much time would have to pass, and what would have to either happen to the stock market or the economy or whatnot to be able to create some kind of influence on this president in a different way? He apparently, by the way, Rubio, just this morning speaking, they are, set ahead. They think they're still going, and they're apparently saying that the unpredictability of tariffs are not true.
Right. So in the first Trump administration, I think the business community was willing to say, as long as we got tax cuts and deregulation. They were willing to hold their nose on trade policy and on immigration policy. But this is a whole different level of trade disruption. And it'll be interesting to see whether we begin to see profiles encouraged. So far, as you said, we have not seen a lot of profiles encouraged either among the business community or among Republican members of Congress. I think they're very concerned about retaliation by the president. He's effectively shown how he can do that. And I think we're not likely to see it until two things happen. One, until there's some visible drop in his popularity or in the polls because of these actions. And while there are some small signs, I think people are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt right now. And so they haven't seen the effect yet. And we'll see if it affects his popularity. The second is, as time passes and you get closer to the midterm election, you may well have Republican members of Congress, vulnerable Republican members of Congress, who begin to speak out and say, we need to adjust, or you're going to lose one or both houses of Congress, and you don't want to be subject to the investigations and the gridlock that comes with a divided government. And so I think the administration feels like they have between now and about October to do as many things as they can possibly get done, and that after October, the pressure of the midterm election and what that might mean for the president will begin to potentially be a bit of a constraint.
Real quick, though, Michael, as somebody who's lived in Washington, how does this change the budget fight? I mean, we heard from House Speaker Mike Johnson. He thinks this is all going to be figured out in the month of May, which is obviously just a month from now. Is that even plausible given the pressures that this whole scenario is going to create?
I think this introduces a lot of chaos into that process, and to the degree that they were counting on tariffs to produce revenue to offset some of the tax cuts. I think there's a lot of questioning about that, both about whether they can count these tariffs as revenue against those tax cuts, and also whether it will emerge. Because again, are we negotiating or are these permanent tariffs? And will we continue to import, or will people move their production to the United States? All of those uncertainties are going to affect this budget debate as well.